Hi guys, it's Blackie. We're back with another live. Trying to get my dang hat to go square. Look square on the thing, get the wolf straight over the nose, that type deal. But everything's backwards in the camera, Timmy. Tim Pierce, you are first tonight. You made it. Congrats. Woo. Tiny Titan, hi. Good evening. Hope things are going well out there on the West Coast. Y'all got any frost or cool yet? I saw where the high mountains in North Carolina got a little bit of frost the other day. We got to be 39 at the camp out the other morning. So, hey, Charles Martin, good evening. I'm doing well, Charles. Thank you. And thanks. I'll bring the knife out and show in a minute. Jeff, hello to Newfoundland, Canada. Yeah, I'm still fighting this thing, but I have made some headway. So I'm not giving up. I'm outgunned, but I ain't giving up. So it's kind of the Alamo of, none shall pass. I will keep digging. We shall see. 2020, good evening. Randy Robbins, hello. Tiny Titan, it's cold up there, I imagine. We're going to have a cold winter this year. Everything is lining up for a cold winter. Johnny, hello. David Lee, good evening. George, how you doing? Fishing Golf, hello to Illinois. Jeff, thank you very much. Stephen, good evening. David Lee. Woo, 29, Minnesota. Yeah, we're going to have a good cold winter this time. Maybe we'll get snow in Bama. Awesome. Justin, good evening. Gary, good evening. Old school EDC, glad to help. Glad to help you. Oh, yeah, it's pretty cool up there, too. If it was 2 Celsius, that's right above freezing. Heath, hello to West Virginia. Aldo, hello. Craig, good evening. Christopher, good evening. Will, good evening. Boy, everybody's rolling in. Mopar, good evening. David Lee, deer will be starting the rut soon. We don't start down here to January. A lot of times it's right at the end of the season we finally get the rut. But cold will kick them in a lot of times. Yep, Thursday evening, thanks. Gulf Coast, good evening. Yeah, I'm glad you made it to the camp out, Gulf Coast. -4 where 2020 is at. Wow. Aldo, thank you very much. Jeff, it's raining there. We haven't had rain here in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. And so I'm having to water everything. They need to come on and give us a little bit of rain. When that hurricane went by, boy, I got a little bit of a lag. I can tell because I move my hand and I see it move on the screen. So y'all let me know if the lag gets too bad. If so, we'll reboot and try it again. But after the hurricanes went by, we just hadn't had any rain since then. So it's been about a month, really. Charles Martin, 88 there. It hit 86 here, and it was within 1 degree of being a record high where I'm at. So, Jimmy Dunlap, hello, Louisiana. Old school, hello there, New York City. It'll kill, hello. Tim Pierce, I am too. I'll be glad when this is over one way or the other so I don't have to listen to that stuff. Oh, David Lee, sorry about that. Oh, man, yeah. Aldo, yeah, that's the thing in picking a lot of times. Y'all need a little bit of moisture because the corn pickers and the other kind of pickers, it's rare down here in my part of the South due to the humidity. But cotton pickers, peanut pickers can have the same problems that y'all have if it's super dry. And so we need the rain right now because the ground can be so dry that they're digging peanuts right now. And if the ground is too dry, it will break off and leave the peanuts in the ground. And so they need a certain amount of moisture down here. Michelangelo, hello to Ohio. Nikki, hello. Clear Rapids, cool, 56. Gray Wolf, good 9, 29 and snowing. Awesome. Tim Funk, good evening. East Berlin. Will Round, is there a cheap way to reload 410 shells without an expensive press? Yes. What you got to do is Lee Precision. I know at one time made a 410 hand loader in their Lee loader kit. You can probably find them on eBay. If not, what I always did was I took a hardened washer. You go to the auto parts place and you telling them I need a hard washer, like a grade 8 washer or something like that. That's got a hole big enough for a primer to pass through. Okay. And what we would do is we would sit it down there and line it up, and we would draw with a marker or something, make sure we knew how to line it up. And we'd take a punch and go down and knock out the old primer. Blunt end punch, not a sharp end, but a blunt end. Put the new primer in by hand, then centered it over instead of being on the hole on the side, and run down with a 1/4 inch deep well socket and tap that down, and that would seat the primer. And then you just use the little scoops to scoop the stuff in. And then for folding in the thing, we just take a crimping tool and push down on it and crimp the end in. So you really didn't need a press. You know, I have loaded 12 gauge, 20 gauge, and all of them without a press before. But it does make life a lot faster, but you can reload them just like that. In fact, if you get a Dixie Gunworks catalog, in the back, they got a big, thick section of tips and tricks and stuff. And it's just random. There isn't organized. But it goes in detail exactly what I just said on how to reload 410 shotgun shells with newspaper wadding and stuff like that. So it can be done. Okay, Susan, good evening. Jeff, hello. Ooh, let me catch up. Everybody's on here tonight. Wow, we got 75. Patriot America, good evening. Gary, hey, Blackie, have you used a slingshot for EDC? I have not. When I was a young man, I did get really good with slingshots, but then I learned how to shoot rifles and shotguns and handguns and kind of got away from it. So I'm real rusty with a slingshot. I can hit a Coke can with it, but that's about it. Florida Scout, hello. Well, Nikki, thank you very much. I appreciate that. James Singer, hello to Columbia, South Carolina. Johnny, you had to load shotgun shells. Yep, back in that day, we were poor. You know, we used to make 410 shotgun shells. We take a 45-70 empty case, put a squib load in it with just a little bit of powder, and then the wax in the end of it. Just press it down onto a block of Gulf wax so it plugged in, and shoot it, and that would fire form the 45-70 brass to be a 410 brass. And then we'd load and use it. And that way we didn't have to buy shotgun primers, which were more expensive. We could use rifle primers. We got more of them in a box for cheaper back in them days. Ooh. Mitchell's warm and sunny in California also. Jonathan Frisbee's in the house. Good evening, brother. Glad you made it home safe, and thank you for coming to the camp out. It was wonderful. Oh, yeah, they did good. Patriot from Central Texas, good evening. Garen, good evening to North Central Florida. Aldo, hello. Yeah, Mitchell, I got a new knife. I'll bring it out and show it in a minute. Richard, hello there. Oh, good in England. Thanks. Joe Cool, good evening. It'll kill. Blackie, if I was going to be taking out a wolf with a cap and ball revolver up close, what would shot placement be? Head on, I would go for a headshot if he was close. If he was any kind of sideways or angle, I'd go for a chest shot. Besides that, head on, go for a head, because at the angle we stand to them, if you shoot him in the chest head on, it might go out the bottom of the chest and miss the heart and etc. Unless you're at an angle where you can shoot straight in. If he's at a quarter to you, you always aim to go across. Imagine the heart in the middle of the body, wherever it is. Always try to cross that heart. That way you get both lungs and the heart region. He's going down. No canine will stand up to that. And he may stumble around, he may bite at the air and stuff. He may still take a step forward toward you, but it's over. Just stay away from him. He'll go down. All right, where was I at? Okay. Oh, Bear's in the house. Good evening, brother. All right, I'm caught back up. Yeah. Yeah, Charles Martin, it's got the things to use a bow drill set. Well, okay. Everybody's asking. Let's go ahead and just go ahead. This is the WC Greyman knife. As you guys know that follow my channel, I've been doing WC knives for years. I'm in love with these knives. And I've had my prototype like 8 years now. And then about 5 or 6 years ago is when I got the Blackbird. And I've been using them as my primary. Now I play with other knives too, etc. But at the same time, that's been my primary knife. And so I started hearing little hints in the grapevine about a new knife that William's going to be coming out with. And he wanted to get my thoughts on it. And I said, absolutely, brother. Let me see it. I'll give you my honest opinion. Absolutely. And it was coming from the Fuel the Fires group. This was their kind of design they were talking about. And so a collaboration happened between William and them, and they created the knife. And so that's it. It's got a bow drill divot on both sides. It's got William's Coke bottle handle, so it's flat. Then you got I love the fact it puts that in there because that fits, that part of your hand fits in there perfect. It doesn't fuck it up. It does great. You got all 3 of the grips, just like you do with all of his stuff. It's got a good spine on it, so it's got good strength. And yet it's a saber grind, which means it slices really, really well. And William puts like an 11 or 12 degree angle on it. Man, this thing cuts, dude. I mean, cuts green wood, cuts meat. It's great overall. And it's, about the same angle it's on my Blackbird. And so, but the knife has got just a touch of a curve. When you look at it, you'll notice there's just a super slight curve to it. And that puts the point right in line with your pushing and doing stuff. But yeah, it's AEBL. Yeah. Yeah. And so whenever they sprung this on me and gave it to me as a gift at this gathering, I was floored that they'd give me such a gift. I really was. That just out of friendship and appreciation for me helping them over the years and etc. They gave it to me. And so I decided, I haven't done a challenge here lately. And those of you that have followed my channel will know that I did a year of the kukri. I did a year of a K-bar. I did a year of the Condor bush lore. I've done a couple other things where I've done for 1 year. I'll use that as my primary, whatever. And so I'm going to be doing for the next year the Greyman. I'm going to do a year with the Greyman. Okay, I see my name pop up. Okay, Aldo. Blackie, do you keep anything for survival or hunting or fishing tucked in your hat? I was wanting to put a few light items in a Stetson. In the past, I have. Up underneath the that liner right there, in the past, I've had some fishing line and a couple of fishing hooks wrapped with a piece of aluminum foil so that hook wouldn't work around and get into me. You know what I mean? But I've had fishing line, fishing hooks. I've had a couple other things I've, in various times, have tucked into the hat for various reasons. I don't right now, but I have. And then the sheath is from my good friend Randy at stitchgear.com. I added this. I also added these two. These are stainless steel wire key rings that you get. It's got a twist on it so you can screw it on there, that I got off of Amazon a while back. And I have been carrying this on a baldric like that, slung up under my shoulder right now. But it's got a belt loop right there to go on the belt. And then this big cuff right here is so you can run a belt and do horizontal carry. And since JJ and the Fuel the Fire guys are coming from the prepper side of the table, so to speak, they want this knife to be concealable. And so this is the way they wear those, up under just an untucked shirt, so it doesn't blueprint well and it doesn't show up, which they don't put the big ferro rod on it. But so that way you can carry it where it's Cheyenne style, like that, pointing up on the belt, horizontal, upside down, angled up, angled down, Scout carried like 8 ways you can carry this thing. And me adding them 2 loops, I can now Baldric carry it. So that's what you're going to be seeing in my videos. And the videos I've shot today, you will be seeing it more in the future. But that's what it is. It's called the Greyman by William Collins WC Knives. So that's it. Okay, I'm caught back up now. Let me see some reading here. Okay, hello, Neil Blakely. Good evening. Aldo, awesome knife. Utah. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see. Hang in with the bullfrog and son. How long will the haversack run be going on? Till I sell out. And I had not sold out at this time. But usually it's a less than a week. Sometimes I sell out in a day. But when I come in every night and I check every night. And I go through and I write down everybody that's paid and etc. to make sure everything's logged in. And so I'm betting the way it's selling, it probably go on for about another week, probably to the first of the month or so. And then I know some stuff will be sold out by then, but otherwise it'll be going on at least to the first of the month. Patriot American. Yes, it was. Thank you. Yeah, Tim Pierce. I get you. That silicone coating, that rubberized coating on ponchos will eventually give up and start just peeling off. And that's when we turn it into a ground tarp, a ground sheet. Just throw down where you're not really concerned about waterproof. You just want something to be a barrier. That's whenever we turn them into those. Mark it somehow. I used to take mine and I'd put orange paracord on a corner, or years and years ago, I'd actually cut a corner off. So I could look at it and tell that is no longer a poncho. That's a ground cloth. So don't even bother. Use it to throw over the firewood and stuff like that. Although that sheet is a skookum. I'm familiar with the skookum. It's a similar idea, yeah. Tim P. Myazine, yes, Myazine. Automotives will have that stuff. It will cut that smell pretty well. Charles Martin, were you able to get your old email back or find a young person? I have not. And let's bring that up. In the description box, I gave you the new one, which is Black Oracle 69. It's a really old email of mine, but I had created Down and Dirty Woodscraft as my business, so to speak, so I could keep track of all my stuff. So when you came there and you say, hey, I want to be in on whatever, I would send you the PayPal link and then I would drop you into a file folder. That way, if anything happened, I could just go to that file folder and bulk send to everybody that update of it's going well, or we got a hang up or whatever. And Google and Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom with this Windows 11, I can't get to it. I can see it exists, but I can't get to it. I have a Down and Dirty woodscraft@gmail.com, but there's not a single email in it. It's got me. It says it's it. And then when I click over and I dig, and it brings up this brand account. Okay, so I have my name for my Google account that I set up way back, like 15 years ago. And then underneath that is Blackie Thomas. Now that is on my YouTube is Blackie Thomas as a brand of, right? And all of that's owned by Google. And there's this great big red button that says delete brand account. I'm not touching that, because that might make my channel just go, oh, we didn't mean to delete that. Even though I'm talking about an email on Gmail, that button pops up and says delete brand account. Was that just for them, or is that in all of it? I don't want to have Blackie Thomas just go and there not be another, I've got most of my videos backed up, but I don't want to spend the next 2 years just reloading the last 15 years worth of videos. So I'm just changed to a new one, and I'm picking up the pieces and going. So I did it before. I'll do it again. I'll build my own little niche again. So hang in there with me, guys. We'll do it. Mitchell, yes, putting it underneath your jacket or coat or whatever is concealed carry, and depending on where you're at, can be a bad thing. Okay. Jimmy, Blackie, have you checked out Dakota's tarp prototype? Yes, I've seen it and talked to him quite extensively about it. Aldo, yes. What Blackie? What do you use underneath you for a ground cloth when you camp? Oilcloth work. Oilcloth will work, but oilcloth is expensive. The ground cloth needs to either be A, waterproof, and B, kind of disposable, because ground cloths get holes in them because sand, dirt, sharp sticks, rocks, whatever, thorns are going to poke holes in it. And so no ground cloth is ever any good anymore to be as a tarp because it's going to be full of holes. So I always recycle an old poncho or something and put under me, because that way I know, because you're sitting on it and you're twisting your body and you're just grinding into it and you'll stretch and tear the material. And so it's just best to do that. And I'll use an old poncho. I'll use a cheap tarp, something like that. Because I'm never going to put a good tarp underneath me. You see those outlays for the folding up, and they show where they fold half the tarp underneath, and that's where you're going to sleep and put yeah, real quick, you'll have half a tarp full of holes. So, way to go. Ravenswood, good evening. Dances with Empties, good evening. Kent Alders, good evening, brother. Mark, Blackie, have you seen Dave Canterbury's new carbon steel skillet? Yes, and I will be trying to get me one tomorrow because that looks cool. I have a very similar skillet to that, but without a folding handle, and I've got the Pathfinder already folding handle skillet. But that carbon one, yeah, it's deep. That'd be perfect for stew for one. It would be great for deep frying fish or something like, better than the old Pathfinder skillet because it's deeper. And I understand that the Pathfinder lid the old skillet lid will fit onto the new one. Maybe not a perfect fit, but good enough. And that'll allow me to do stuff like that, because there's going to be, when I get done with the canteen cup cooking, which the new episode of that will be posting tomorrow. When I get done with that, I'm going to roll over to bush pots, and then there's going to be a whole section on skillets. And I'm going to be making pizza in a skillet on a fire. So show how to do that. I want that carbon steel skillet. I want to do a little stir fry in it. That looks fun. But yeah, I'm going to try tomorrow to see if I can get lucky and score me one. James, I'm not sure what the going price is, but remember, it's a custom. So it's not going to be, it's not $5,000. It's probably in the $200 something range, but it's going to last the rest of your life. So it's not a starter knife, but it's one of the investments. But it really is a good knife. All the WC knives. I'm so happy with mine. Old school. I recently picked up a surplus M81 poncho when rigging it for a shelter and wearing it. Should the cord, strap, waist string be on the inside or the outside? When you're wearing it, it should be on the outside. No, inside, because it was meant so you could pull it and gather it up to the back. And that way you could still unsnap and get out of it. If you bring it all the way around and tie it like a belt, you can't get out of it in a hurry. And so for combat, they didn't want that. They wanted to be able to still unsnap it and get out. But they wanted it in the back where they could cinch it up like a draw cord in the back on the inside. And then still be wearing a pack. So if you had to dump it, you could unsnap and get out of it quick. But it should be on the inside. I think, wear it like you want, but I think it was official military doctrine. Jeff Conley, I will avoid Windows 11 as long as possible. I did too. I didn't ask. Every time they said we can do, I said no, and they didn't give me the choice. They just did it. So. Oh, cool. Johnny, you're season one of Corporal's Corner ones. Cool. Hello, Miss Pam. Pam's in the house. Pam is the reason we have a fall gathering down at the land. Shane, good evening. Okay, I'm catching back up. I'm reading as fast as I can. Charles Martin, yeah, I did. I saw where he's doing some cold steel handle skillets. That looks cool. Oh, okay. Nikki, what do you usually use when loading a double barrel shotgun with black powder? Usually I use like 2F. Works better in those big bores. More consistent. You can use 3F, and in that short height of pistol, 3F. Okay. It's when you got the long barrels and such a big bore, the 2F is more consistent, but you're talking about a short barrel. So I'd go with 3F powder or RS, Powered X, or P. Okay. But it should be a 3F for that shorter barrel. Red Sorghum, good evening. Okay. Jeff, William is saying that the new Greyman is $300 with a Kydex sleeve at his channel. It's just it comes with a little Kydex sheath on it. Cool. Well, yeah, the sheath is extra, but together would be 300 then. Okay. Johnny, good evening. Bear Claw, have you ever used Ballistol to clean your cabin balls? What do you think of it? It smells bad, but it works. I have used it in the past, and you're right, it smells bad. I got away from using it. I just use hot water, hot tap water, and a couple of drops of Dawn. Does the same job, dissolves the black powder, especially if you're using real black powder. It just dissolves it on contact. Poof, it's gone. And then after I let it dry, because I use hot tap water. Don't use boiling water, use hot tap water. Something where you can stick your hand in it, but you don't want to keep your hand in it. Okay. And then once it's good and clean, let it dry and then grease it up, lube it up to keep it from rusting. Works perfectly fine. Oh, I know, Pam. I understand Gettysburg was calling. Yeah, y'all had fun. That's the big thing. Diane Ferguson, hello to Texas. And Pam, Jonathan Frisbee said y'all were missed. Yeah, Aldo, I've heard of Linux, but Blackie's not a computer whiz, okay? And like I said, my young person that used to come down here and do my IT stuff, she's done gone off to college, so I might find somebody else. Charles Martin, cool. Damascus steel can be really good steel. Gray Wolf, yeah. Blackie, did you see where Jake and the boys recently tried the compressed powder charge for cap and ball? Any thoughts on them? They look really good. And I knew a guy back in the late 70s that was making his own version of compressed ones. And he had worked out the exact load for his gun, and then he just made compressed ones. He was doing it for serious competition shooting consistency. And so it's a lot of work, but yes, it is convenient, but it is a lot of work to get the properly compressed pellets and charges made up for the gun. So I know that's becoming a thing right now. A lot of the guys are getting those little presses and making them. And I'm sure it'd be worthwhile. I haven't played with that yet, but I have seen it and been around somebody shooting them. And it seems to work well. That was a problem I always had with Powered X pellets. Yes, they're convenient, but it's a flat load. One pellet equals this. And what if my gun's favorite load, accurate load is above and beyond that? Well, then those pellets were just for plinking. And so, but with this compression thing they're doing now, you could make up the correct load and have custom ammunition for your gun. So it does have a good idea on it. Kenny, Blackie, what is a good oil to use for making a canvas oilcloth? Boiled linseed oil is the typical thing that is used for that. Now, if you are doing it for historic, yes, boil linseed oil. If you don't care anything about historic, but you're wanting to take canvas and really, really waterproof it, go look at my friend William Collins WC Knives YouTube channel and go back into the thing, and you're going to find where he took a bed sheet and took mineral spirits and a tube of silicone and basically made it into like sil nylon. And you just let it, the cotton sheet will absorb it, the cotton tarp will absorb it. And when it gets dry, and it'll dry much quicker than the boiled linseed oil does, much quicker, like in a week, it'll be dry. And he said it feels like sil nylon, even though it's canvas, and it beads water like crazy. So that might be something you want to look at. Andrew Kelso, what would be a good knife for sharpening, and what would be a good stone for sharpening knife out in the field if you don't have one? That's going to depend a lot on your local topography. It's going to have to be hard, harder than the steel, and yet not rounded. And so any of the cherts are hard enough. But the question is, if it's got an edge or a toothy ability. Because a lot of times those have been tumbled around forever in rivers, and they're just smooth as glass, and they don't do nothing. Sandstone too soft, it just the blade cuts the rock. So you're just going to have to find one and actually try it and see if it cuts the metal or if the metal cuts the rock. You know. Aldo, Blackie, do you use round ball or conical in a 49 pocket model? I have one, conversion kit, 22 long rifle for a while now. Usually with mine, I shoot round ball for everything except hunting. And then I'll switch over to a conical. Washburn Billy, good evening. Yeah, Victorinox has that little ceramic thing. The little Viking stone makes a good hone that you get from Wazoo. A good old diamond hone of anything will do a good job. And if you go look at Smoky Mountain Knife Works and look at their sharpening area, they got a lot of real small little pocket diamond hones that would be weigh nothing and would be great for carrying in the field for touching up blades. Jazz, hello to Ozark, Alabama. Good evening. Steve Kingsbury, good evening, brother. Thanks for coming out to the gathering. All right. Good night, Bear. Thanks for dropping in. Okay, catching up, catching up. Ian Gilroy, yes, thank you very much. And thanks for tuning in. Okay, Graham, Blackie, what do you think about the in 1095, the Condor? Decent knife. It really is. That pterosaur or whatever they call it by Condor. A lot of people carried them, are carrying them, and I know that Dean Lutz, uh, Dean Lutz, wow, Dan Lutz had got one because he saw like Joe Flowers and a bunch of other names you'd recognize carrying them. And so he picked one up and he told me, he said, it's got decent steel. It holds an edge well, which was high praise because Dan knew his knives. I mean, really knew his blades a lot better than I do. Yeah, Condor Bushlore. Gary, I carried a Condor Bushlore for a couple of years before I got my WC knives. It's still hanging up on the shelf right over there. I still used it from time to time whenever that was just the better knife choice than my bigger knives. And it's a good knife, especially for the money. good field knife. Charles Martin, do you have a specific kind of knife sharpener you carry around? I carry in my set one of the little Viking hones, because most of my knives, like this one right now that I'm carrying in the field, were AEBL, and that's super easy to sharpen in the field. So once it gets a touch dull, all I'm going to do is hone it. I don't really truly have to sharpen it. I just got to hone it back up. A couple of strokes on that with a little bit of spit on the rock, it'll be right back to razor popping sharp. And so I don't have to carry much. Beyond that, deep in my gear, I got a small diamond rod, something similar to that, buried in my gear that I can. And then on the back of my kukri, I carry a file. So between those three, I can usually take care of anything that I stumble into out there. Patriot America. Blackie, have you ever tried any of the LT Wright knives? I have held them, and I have done a little bit of wielding, but I've never owned one and really got in depth with it. The LT Wright is a really good company, and the guy makes really good knives. I just haven't had a chance to really do much with it. But I know like the Bearded Burton and a couple other people, and I've seen them at the shows and events. And I've known several people in our group that had LT Wright knives and really praised them. So they appear to be a really good knife. I just haven't had one in my hand and be able to do a real in-depth time with it. So but that's the best I can tell you. I can't go in depth because I don't have no real world time with it. Okay, Washburn Billy, you have a question. He has a fully rifled 12 gauge shotgun. Should he use sabot or regular slug? Either one will work. Sabot will work better in that, because most of the slugs you go to get are rifled slugs. Rifled slugs are for an unrifled bore. The rifling on the slug will catch the wind and get it to turn a little bit. You want a smooth slug to shoot in a rifled bore or a sabot, because if you shoot a rifled slug and a rifled bore, the two riflings argue going down the bore, and it has less accuracy. So, in fact, I got a really good deal one time on a Remington 870 fully rifled barrel with rifle sights on, because the guy said you can't hit the broadside of a mountain with it, and he'd done all these Bernicky slugs and all this stuff, and way over the top. Well, I got it. He sold me the barrel for like $50. And I looked down the barrel. It was leaded up horribly. So I scrubbed all that lead out of it. And then I went to shooting just a plain, home cast lead slug. It would put all shots on a paper plate at 100 yards. It turned into a 75 caliber rifle. But he was shooting rifle slugs, and the rifling was fighting with the rifling in the gun. So rifle slugs is for an unrifled bore. The sabots will work in either, because that plastic casing will engage the rifling. See? Okay. Oh, yeah. So Blackie must tell how the cooking book is going. The cooking book is Bear's problem. Blackie's working on the other stuff. I'm not doing a book. I'm doing a video series. So you can just transcribe the video series. If you'll go look at one of my videos, when you're looking, I can only tell you this from a computer. I can't tell you what it's going to look like on phone. But you look down on the bottom where it's got the share and everything else button, like, share, and all that. There's those three dots on the end. You click that menu, and it's going to come up and say transcript. And that's going to bring up every word I said in it, that video. And you can cut and paste that to a Word document and make up your own cookbook that way. So if you want to take Blackie's Canteen Cooking Series or all my other cooking series and turn it into your own book, go right ahead. Because I'm struggling to do the book that I'm doing the other way. And I don't know. We're going to see. I'm not giving up on it, but I'm just so busy, guys. I don't have the time to get into it, really. I keep saying I'm going to do it, and it just keeps getting pushed to the back because I'm just so busy. Okay, catching up. Okay. Yeah, Charles Martin. My cooking book is on YouTube. Lots of little videos. I restarted my cooking series to do the canteen cup. I'm going to do all that. And I'm also going to be throwing in surplus for ground pounder. We're not getting rid of ground pounder. In fact, I've got a new ground pounder coming out next week where I'm talking about a chuck bag to go inside of your bag. I found a radio bag. The surplus place in Samson's got quite a few of them, and it's kind of a liner in it, so it acts like a semi-rigid thing. Make a great chuck box to go on the outside of your pack to be able to carry your foods and cooking stuff and all that with. But I'll talk about that in detail. But I'm doing all the canteen cup, and then I'm going to go to the bush pot, and then I'll go from that to a skillet, and then the last thing I'll do will be Dutch ovens and stuff. And that'll be like a cookbook, but it's going to be for real world, us being in the field, based instead on the recipes by what you're cooking with. Let me show you things you can cook in that. So kind of my own little warped idea. I can't find round ball for a smooth bore 20 gauge modified choke anywhere. Any suggestions? My bore is 608. Yes. Dixie Gunworks has got a mold for that, and so does, I think, Lee Precision has got a mold for it, because that's a 62 caliber muzzle loader. The 2-liter chase and all like that shoot round ball in that size. And it's, if you're 608 at the muzzle, okay, so a 60 cal 600 would work because it would flare out that much going down the bore. Because when the powder slaps in the butt, it arbitrates out a little bit, kind of like squeezing a marshmallow. So you're close enough there, it would easily do that. It'll go up to 10 thousandths bigger, and it'll fit the bore going out and still go out at it. As long as it's modified, it'll go through it. You couldn't do it in a full choke because it'd be just hitting that and banging on it. You won't have a full choke for long, but a modified, it will go through it. And so it's like a 610 at the bottom, but Lee makes a 600 mold. Go look at leeprecision.com, look at muzzle loading, and look at molds, and you'll find the 600 and just make a round ball and do that. It's pumpkin balls, what they used to call those shells. Works fine. Gary Graham, good night. Sleep well. Yeah, James, cooking. Wife can't because she's on a diet. Well, peach cobbler. Look at last week, peach cobbler. And I apologize for that being so late. The week I was sick, that's when the peach cobbler one was supposed to post. I had loaded it, but I had not set what date it was to be posted. And so I had to go back and do it. So it posted this last Sunday. But that was supposed to be like 2 weeks before that. So, canteen cup cobbler, quick and easy. Eric Vader, congratulations to Blackie for reserving the Greyman from Fuel the Fires. I'm looking forward to your review of that knife. It'll be coming soon. Can you touch more on cooking serious? Yeah, there'll be more serious cooking coming up. Once we get out of the canteen cup, because you're limited by size. These are going to be quick meals. When we go to the bush pot, I'm going to bigger things like stews and stuff like that, where you're cooking for more than just you, or you're cooking enough today that it's cold enough I can hang it in a tree overnight, and it'll be like a refrigerator. It'll be perfectly fine in the morning, and I can heat it up for breakfast or lunch tomorrow. There'll be bigger things. And when we go into the big bush pots, I'll, full family meals and stuff like that. And then we go to skillets. We're going to be talking about that. I'm going to show you how to make pizza in a skillet on a fire, and several other things out there. There's more cooking coming. Like I said, I shot the canteen cup cooking eggs, bacon, and grits in a canteen cup today, and that one will post tomorrow. Mitchell, I appreciate the idea, but I don't think that one will work. My wife is not the writer of the bunch, and I love her to death. She's brilliant, but she's not the writer. She worked for nearly 20 years teaching 3-year-olds in a daycare. That's her favorite age to work with is 3-year-olds. So if she writes a book, she's going to write it like she's talking to a 3-year-old. Not the angle I want to go. True. Justin Wilson struggled. Hey, look at Colonel Sanders. You know. Rhett McCory, welcome. Yep, Gray Wolf, he's right. They got bag moles as well. So look at Dixie, look at Track of the Wolf, and also look at Lee Precision. Charles Martin, do you have a particular kind of grind on a knife that you like? I like somewhere around the 12, 13, 14 degree. They cut well, but they still got enough strength that when you bear down on something straight down, I'm talking about batoning or beating, but when you bear down, you don't want to bend easy. There's enough meat there to hold it. But you see a lot of survival knives, they'll be like a 18, 20 degree edge. Yeah, you can beat it through a 2x4. You can't slice a tomato with it. You can't make a sandwich with the thing. And it's the food prep or game prep's out the window. But yeah, man, I can beat through a 2x4 with it. But you go too thin and your edge gets too weak. And so somewhere around 11, 12 degrees is what I personally like myself. That's what William stays with. We talked quite a bit about that, on what degree. I would buy a knife and then I would re-bevel it. Not from him, but in the past. Many years ago when I was a teenager, I got a Tremona Bowie. And great steel, but the edge was just blunt. You know, they pulled it between two spinning wheels is how they put an edge on it. Yeah, it's sharp, but you go to bear down and it just wouldn't cut because it's shouldering out. And I took a file and I reprofiled that thing to where it had about 11 degree or 12 degree angle. And that thing would cut then. And I used it for a lot of years. T-Bor, I'm doing well. Thank you. Charles Martin, yes, I had make egg drop soup that way of using the chicken broth and stir in one egg when it's boiling. Egg drop soup, yeah. Jeff, well, hello to Carson City, Nevada. Blackie, do you have more to say about cooking with old-timey traditional things like cornmeal, dehydrated? Yeah, that'll be coming up. Once I scale up to bigger, yeah. There'll be things like there's going to be lima beans with salt pork. That's going to be on the menu, I can tell you right now. But then cornbread. We're going to be doing cornbread in a canteen cup pretty soon. But we're going to talk about bacon. We're going to be making cornmeal into various things. We're going to go with Bisquick of how you can make pancakes. You can make bread with it. You can make cake with it. You know, that's going to be a whole discussion of a pantry to bring and what I'm bringing and why, because it gives me such variety where I can just decide, yeah, I'm going to have pancakes in the morning, and I can whip up the pancakes by measuring the stuff right quick into a Ziploc bag, shaking the fool out of it to combine it, just add water, and I got pancake dough. Same idea, change the components a little bit, and I make cake. Same idea, change it, the ratio just a little bit, and I can make bread. You know, that's the reason Mama had all that Bisquick and all that flour and stuff sitting there. It's just what she wanted to make was what she combined in a bowl. It's kind of like a palette for a artist. You know, you just put a little colors on here and combine it, and that's the idea in cooking. Matt Flaherty, what's the military name and number for the compression roll sack for clothes? I'm not familiar with it, but if you'll contact the ladies down there at Kaufman's Military Surplus in Sampson, phone number is 334-898-1770. Tell them what you're looking for. They got the big one, and I think they got the small ones. I know they got about 150 of the big ones down there. And I know they got the small ones too. And you just squeeze the air out of it and compress it in. They've got them. Tell them, and they'll know exactly what you're asking for. Jimmy Dunlap, yeah, you found that Nor chicken and tomato. Good stuff, ain't it? I'm going to use some of that, and I'm going to add that darn good chili to the tomato and that. Use that for the liquid and see if I can throw some of that into that chili. I think it'll make it taste better. But that I'm going to experiment with that at the house. But it's going to be coming up soon. Now that it's getting cool and I can cook and not sit there and sweat like crazy, I'm going to be doing some more stuff real quick. Old school EDC, do you have an Eastern cutlery slip joint? I do not. I have plenty of slip joints, but I don't have an Eastern cutlery. Yep, Mark Burgess, when you do good cooking, the neighbors hate you. When me and Don Davis went to the Eastern Rendezvous in New York, up there on the Seneca Reservation years ago, and I cooked every night. And we had a fire, we had firearms, we had everything, right? And I cooked bacon wrapped filet mignons and scalloped potatoes, and there was a cobbler for dessert, and a big thing of hot sweet tea for drinking with it, and bread. I had baked bread that morning. So I baked the bread about lunch. With a leftover breakfast fire, I baked my bread and let that cool all day. And it was sitting on a rack till it cools off, and I got it wrapped up to keep it from drying out. So for dinner, you had, the filet mignons and the potatoes and stuff, big old hunk of bread and fresh butter. We had fresh butter from up there. We stopped at an Amish place on the way up and got the butter. And I remember that guy who was downwind of us. This was like the fourth, fifth day. He came over and he said, I am so blank, 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 blank sick of being downwind of you. And, all huff and gruff. And I said, why? He said, I've been eating beanie weenies for 3 days straight. And I said, well, we got extra, sit down. And so he started coming over and said, I'll pay. I'm sick of canned stuff. Can I please pay or something? Come on, I got extra. So the next night we made spaghetti and something and garlic bread. So being a good cook can be a good thing. Okay, Galen. Blackie, how did the early mountain men develop the footwear? I'm assuming it was moccasins. And at what point did leather shoes come in? The Europeans were already on shoes. The Eastern was the Native Americans and the people that were here. You got to understand this. What is a moccasin? It is not truly a shoe like we think. These people went barefoot, okay, from birth. So the callus on the bottom of their feet, you could put a cigar out on it. You wasn't going to hurt them. Only the sharpest thorn was going to go through it. I remember somebody talked about in the Ohio Valley in the 1780s, in a battle, they'd killed this Indian. And in the ensuing, somebody had pulled his moccasin off, looking on the body for anything valuable they could, steal. And documented that the callus on the bottom of their foot looked like a hoof. It was fully a ½ inch thick. What a moccasin does is it keeps briars and stuff from going between your toes. That's what it's really doing. So for us in modern times, when we try to We'll make moccasins. Okay, yes, you can make moccasins, but it's like walking in socks. And I wore moccasins for 25 years in my living history. And I'm going to tell you, you learn to put liners or something in that moccasin when you're designing it to fit you, to make sure you got some sort of padding underneath your feet. I used to get these thick leather cutouts, like two of them, and glue them together like an insole to put in there to protect my feet from thorns and stuff, because my feet weren't nearly tough enough. But the Europeans were already in shoes by the time they got here. And when you read, I believe it was Seed Time on the Cumberland, they talked about how someone spotted a stranger coming on the road way over yonder, and everybody had to run up to the house and put their shoes on, because nobody wore shoes except when they were going to town where they had company. So these kids are sitting there muddy and dirty with brand new clean shoes on. And mommy and daddy have nasty feet because they were working in the cattle and barnyard and everything else. And they had to stick their feet into their clean shoes because company was coming. So people didn't wear shoes a lot back then. They were too expensive and they wore out and you couldn't afford to fix them. Exactly, Johnny. Moccasins are really just socks to protect your toes or something going between your toes. Because the bottom of your foot would get good and tough, but between your toes wouldn't. You drag a briar between your toes, you're going to know it. It's really there just to protect your toes. Yes, Tim Pierce, that sea lion compression bag. The big 65 liter is the one they've got down there. I know now about 150 or two of them at that surplus place. And I know they got the smaller ones there too. That small one, like where you can put an entire set of uniform in it and then squeeze the air out of it. Yeah, those are really handy for packing. Cow tipper, glad you make it. Yeah, they did wear a what was called a shoe pack, and it was a sort of like a pucker toe moccasin, but it had a thick leather sole, and they would just sew all the way around it, and so it was called a shoe pack. Like later on, you call a muckaluck, but they did have a shoe pack, and I've made shoe packs, and Mark Baker in the Pioneer Press series, the Long Hunter series. Mark Baker did a video many years ago, 20 plus years ago now, where it's all the skills, and he shows making moccasins, how to make shoe packs on there. I'm sure it's still available out there somewhere, but it was Pioneer Press. And if you go look at Jason Gatliff at Muzzleloading Magazine, I'm sure there's a link somewhere to a modern way to get that video, either online or ordering it somehow. Because I've got it on DVD and I've got it on VHS. So I'm that old. Charles Martin, yeah, the 65 liter is so big you can put all the backpacks in it. And but the big advantage to that is you can roll that bag down and seal it up and use it for flotation to get across water. So in fact, Dave Canterbury and them in the recent class did that on the water's edge thing where they had the students come out and each one of them got one of them big bags, and that's the way they were to go out and across the water was on one of them bags as a float. William Droom, yes. Josh Enyart wears likes moccasins. He comes from buckskinning like I do. Even though he was a Green Beret, he still does live in history. Mr. Johnny, by the way, those lady at Kaufman's are incredibly kind. They're really good ladies. And you tell them you just say Blackie sent me and I whatever. They'll go hand select, give you the best they can find. And if they don't know where it is right now, they'll get a number, they'll go get it, and they'll call you back. And they'll ship anywhere. That's one of the reasons I like working with them. They really do like helping people and finding what it is they're looking for. So. 10 pairs. I'm glad you did. Yeah, once you get off of them things, you realize how much money you were just throwing away. Gerard, hello. Aldo, do I do snowshoeing? Not down here where I live. We don't get that kind of snow. But I know what you're talking about. And yeah, lamp wick or some sort of tightly woven, they would use those. One of the advantages to those was it absorbed water and it'd freeze. And therefore it became really rigid and stiff and stay on your feet. Okay. Aldo, if you'll contact the ladies I was just telling you about at the surplus place, they have snowshoes and the bindings. Yes, guys, all the Arctic stuff in the U.S. military, the Arctic suits, the Arctic underwear, that 7 layers stuff that you can survive, the aluminum snowshoes, the little bitty short Air Force snowshoes, the one in the middle of snowshoes, all the bindings, and the toboggan that they used to pull behind them with the snow skis is in Sampson, Alabama at that surplus place. They've got snowshoe bindings there. So call the ladies down there. I'll give you that number again. 334 379 0287. That's, I gave you wrong. Sorry, guys. 334 898 1770. That's Kaufman's Military Surplus. They're open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time. And then on Saturday, they're open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. They're closed on Sundays. And just call them up, get a hold of one of the ladies, and tell them you need snowshoe bindings. They'll take care of you. Or give you something you can work with at least. And if nothing else, it gives you a pattern. If you want to make it out of another historically correct material, it'll give you a pattern to work with. Yeah, Gray. Well, if you can get rolls of lamp wick from them and the ladies down at surplus, if you want them in green, they've got 1-inch wide military web tape in cotton that was sewed on everything and stuff. They got rolls and rolls of that down there. They would sell it to you by the foot or sell you a whole roll like that, I think, for $12. So you can make all the bindings you want. It's the same. It looks like lamp wick, but it'd be green. Galen, did the early fur trappers trap year round, or that in the early days they did year round, but the winter fur was the prime, pristine fur. That was the big money fur. The summertime fur wasn't really worth much, but they kept working. You know, I know that the first year, 1720 was the first year that Alabama, what would become Alabama, it wasn't state yet, it was just Mobile. Mobile shipped out 360,000 pelts of deer out of what would become Alabama in that one year. And there was all kinds of fur trading down here. The fur would be used for many different things in many different ways. But really, it was the winter fur was the pristine fur, and that's what became the show fur. You know, like the big fur coat. The summer fur, the fur would be taken off, and it would be the hide. It would be used for thin leather. So leather or fur, whichever way you went, depending on the season. TV Blackie for info. I do my best. Mark Burgess, yes, they do have the magnesium frame snowshoes. For a fact, they got them. Yeah, Jeff Conley, why they sent it to Alabama, I don't know, but we got it. I guess you'd go to Alaska to get all the summer and tropical stuff. Yes, that can be part of it, Scott. They do like cedar, and no insect likes the smell of cedar. And so it less bother them. They won't get around their ears and their nose, and etc. Another thing is that deer tend, certainly down here in the south, I don't know where you're at, but down here, the deer, when they bed down, face the wind. No, excuse me. They put their butt to the wind when they lay down and go to sleep. That way they can hear what they can't smell and smell what they can't hear. See? And so if a scent comes on the wind, they want of a predator or something, it'll wake them up. In fact, we used to use that as a deer drive. We would let the drivers go out and set up in their stands before sunrise, and then it was agreed upon that, say it at 11 a.m. up the road or wherever, down upwind of them, so the wind would be coming toward them, going through the woods or whatever. You would get somebody, and we'd take a coat hanger and we'd open it out, so just a long wire with a hook. And then on that hook, we would take and put an entire box of tampons. Just take all the cardboard out, get the cotton, and make a big wad of that. Okay? Then you crimp down that wire so it ain't going to come off. And then you take an entire bottle of cologne, aftershave, the loud stuff you get at the dollar store, and you just soak it. Okay? And then that person would walk back and forth up and down that road spinning it, making as much wind as they could. Well, the deer bedded down by 11 o'clock and they're asleep. So the only time you get a lucky shot of the deer is one came in late or for whatever reason had to get up and walk around. Otherwise, you're not going to see any deer because they're bedded down. They're nocturnal. They're going to get up at night at sundown and go eat all night, and they're going to come back and bed down in here. And in the morning, you're just hoping to catch that straggler coming back from the food plot, right? Well, by 10 o'clock, that's all over. So at 11 o'clock, we agree we're going to do this. And your scent dog, the guy that's spinning that thing up the wind, well, that wind comes blowing down through them woods, and the deer are asleep, and suddenly they smell a human. Oh, my God, and it's right here. And they will panic and get up and run. And suddenly all these deer would come boiling up out of the bottom like they got a dog on them because they were asleep. And they woke up and like, oh, my God, it's right on top of me because they smell it so strong, see? And they come boiling out of that bottom, and you get a chance at a shot. And then after that wind dissipates, guess what the deer are going to be doing the rest of the afternoon? Trying to sneak back in. So it kept the deer moving. Increase your potential for getting a deer. We used to call that a silent drive. I have not, Jason, the Halt bar knife. I have not seen that yet. But Swiss Tech makes some good stuff. $110 people watching, 82 likes, and we've been on for an hour. We're doing good. One of the things I really like about this thing's got a really good 90-degree spine on it. And, man, you can plane wood with this. I mean, William did a great job of putting a 90-degree on. It's sharpened up. I believe if I bared down on the back of it and saw it might cut me. That's how sharp it is. So I want to protect that. I don't want to use it for ferro rod a whole lot. If I do, I'll do the ferro rod right here at the corner. Or what I'm looking at is if I roll that lanyard, it's got a hidden lanyard in the end of it, where it's just a hole down there. You go into the hole to tighten. I just put a couple of knots on a piece of orange paracord. But if I roll it to the side, I got that edge is a good 90 as well. And I'm thinking that might be a good place to, do a ferro rod and keep that back edge good and sharp. Because I really, man, when you want to shave down fat wood, make a pile of shavings, put a spark on, catch fire, a good 90-degree spine makes it so much easier. That way I don't dull my edge. I can just bear down and shave a stick, make a pile of good shavings. Because fat wood's kind of sticky. And it doesn't make sawdust. It makes like coconut shavings similar. And so get those all planed down there and then turn around and use that for the striker. So I'm looking forward to do that. That'll be coming up in a thing. But I'm going to be playing with this quite a bit. I've been carrying it around last couple of days. Well, I got it last Saturday. I think it was Saturday, Friday. I think it was Saturday. I got it, and I've been carrying it around ever since. So I came in, my wife went, "Oh, you got a new knife?" And and I let her look at it. And then she immediately started talking about this would be a great kitchen knife. And I went, "No, she's already got 3 WC knives in the kitchen." I said, "This is not going to be a kitchen knife." So it will be used in the kitchen by me, but it will not be the kitchen knife. Andy Knight, good evening. Good night, Jonathan. Thanks for coming in, brother. Be safe. Justin Coon, good evening, brother. I was wondering if you're going to show up. Okay. Timmy, I'm sharpening my Benchmade folder on my Lansky sharpener. Well, I learned from you. What is a good starter square spine knife for the field? I don't have funds for the WC. One of them Condor bush lowers is a good starter knife. The progression that I like to talk about is not knowing skill level, etc. A Mora is a great starting knife. Step up, the Condor bush lower. Good knife, does a good job in the field. Step up from that, the SRO knives from Pathfinder. They're around $100, $125, $150, somewhere in that range. Good knives. WC knife, custom. I would never tell anybody to start out with a WC. Yes, it'd be a fantastic knife, but you got a learning curve that you're going to be learning with knives, and you're going to damage knives because you don't know. You're learning. And I'd rather you broke a $20 more than a $300 custom. So that's kind of progression I recommend. So get a Condor. And if you want to step up from the Condor but ain't quite got the funds to go for a WC, look at one of the SRO Pathfinder knives. That Scorpion or something like that would be a real nice knife to get. I've got a couple of his. In fact, I've got the Buffalo Skinner, which is that butcher knife I like so much. I think that was the last knife I got before this one. I was playing around with it for quite a bit. And that's been in the kitchen quite a bit, slicing meat and stuff like that. So, Charles Martin, I have a secure location to put it. I'll put it that way. Oh, cool. I understand, Justin. Say hey to Pink for me. Charles Martin, I understand. And one of the things that I point out to people is a cell phone. Okay. My cell phone that I carry is just a Walmart special, $75. It does text, it does a little video, it does camera, and I can do phone calls. I don't even have games on. Although it came with games, I told them to delete it when they got the young lady to help me set it up. A calendar, and that's it. That's all I need. The average person right now watching me, whatever phone you're watching on, probably costs more than that knife, double in most cases. I've got young friends, they don't blink an eye paying $1,000 for a cell phone. I would never put that kind of money in a cell phone. But they have the skills and abilities to get all they can out of that cell phone. They know how to do all that stuff. I don't and have no interest. I do a lot of stuff in the woods. And so having a knife that fits all the interests is like that $1,000 cell phone to them. They would laugh at my cell phone. They would feel horribly crippled with my cell phone. And if you gave me $1,000 cell phone, I wouldn't understand 99% of it, nor would I really care to learn it. And so I'd rather put $300 in a knife I'll have till I'm dead than $900 into a cell phone that's only going to be good for 3 to 5 years, and it's going to be so horribly obsolete, nobody wants it. So therefore, it's what you do. Starting out, should I say, get a Mora, then upgrade something like the Condor bush lower, good knife. Maybe the pterosaur, the Gerber Marburg are decent ones, really good ones. And then if you want to go semi-custom or on up to thing, go look at the Pathfinder knives. Good knives. When you get where, dang, I want to try one of them WC knives, you'll have reached the point you won't, buy once, cry once, be done with it. The Greyman would be a great choice. My Blackbird would be a really good choice. But it's not a beginner's knife. It's a knife that's somebody's got a little bit of experience. And that's like the phone. I don't have enough experience to pay that much for a phone, but I will pay that much for a knife because I will get that kind of out of a knife. Counting the days. Hello to Washington State. I hear you, Charles Martin. I remember when I bought the Cold Steel Military Classic, which is that Randall one they did. I drove 2 hours to a place that had it and paid the money. And I had several nice knives that I just couldn't bring myself to use, man. That's $125 knife. I'm scared I'll hurt it. I want to bang it up. And it would stay in the drawer. And I kept running junk knives because I didn't want to bang up my expensive knife. And so finally I had made the decision. I'm not doing that. I want that knife. I want to try and use that knife. And so me and my good friend Micah drove up there and got it. And I paid, it was like $155 for that knife. That was the most money I had ever spent on a knife. It had a good leather sheath with it and everything. It was that Cold Steel Military Classic. And when we walked out to the parking lot, it has a gravel parking lot. That was old white, hard, sharp edge gravel. And we got to the edge of the sidewalk. I stopped. I threw the box away when I bought it. I'm doing a mental battle when I walk out there. I'm standing there holding the leather sheath in one hand and the knife in the other. And I got there and I looked at it and I said, "This is my knife." And Michael went, "Yeah, you just paid for it." "Yeah, this is my knife." And he went, "Yeah, I was standing there. You paid for it." And I looked him in the eye and said, "This is my knife." And I threw it. And he, threw it up, let it hit the rock. Bang! Bounced. I picked it up, skipped it across the parking lot the other way. Ding, 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 like that. I took the sheath and ricocheted it off of the wall a few times across the gravel. Scratched it all up. It ain't pretty no more. Now it's a knife. And I used that knife for 5 years. I just resharpened it. It didn't break nothing. But it dinged it up, and it wasn't pretty no more. And I paid money for a using knife, not a pretty knife. And I couldn't mentally make that change in gear. And so I had to ding it up. Now I can pick up a real pretty good knife, and I ain't got to do that anymore. I can realize I'm going to get the use out of that. And you take a little bit of pride when it gets patina to it, don't you? It gets a few scratches and everything else. When you go back and look at my 2015, 2014, something like that. Whenever I got my original knife from WC, from William, that was the prototype knife. Those handles on it were a light tan color. And my hand and so much sweat and dirt and soot and baking grease and everything else over all these years has turned it to almost leather brown. Those handles are. The blade is patinaed. It's 01 tool steel. That's a well-loved and respected companion in the field. I ain't getting rid of it. Same thing with my Blackbird. When I got my Blackbird, it was pretty. But I immediately went to using it. Immediately. I ain't going to let it be a pretty knife, and I'm going to be scared to use it. And so, do I feel guilty using such an expensive knife? A little bit, until I get a little bit of use out of it. And then it kind of becomes okay. I know a lot of people have that problem, and plus the fact of the cost of a knife. But like I said with that phone, if you've got the skill and the time and you want a knife that you can trust absolutely, and it's got the skill, it's got the abilities that you're looking for, it's worth the money. But that phone, not worth the money, because I ain't got the skills and ability for that phone. I'm happy with a $75 one. Okay, I'll get off my box now. Washburn Billy, I bought a thin axe and it was complete garbage. It looked cool, but wasn't worth it. Agreed. A lot of them thin little bitty axes, whenever they started, we were in Afghanistan, they brought that back out, them Vietnam Tomahawks for fighting hawks, and it was great for cutting sling loads with military drop. Those came back into view again. Instead of carrying a big fighting knife, they just toted a tomahawk. And a lot of those thin fighting tomahawks started popping up everywhere. You know, I remember them showing up, and it's really meant to be a fighting knife. It's not really meant to cut trees or do nothing. It just dings up, the edge rolls. It was meant for close hand-to-hand fighting. I remember a guy that came over and was talking to me and handed me one. It was some big, $400 and something for this little bitty axe about that big with this rapier-like point, parrot's beak back, and this French bearded axe edge on it, and it was had a titanium core and all this wonderful stuff. And I'm looking at it, and when you looked at edge on, it was as blunt as that. That ain't gonna cut for nothing as an axe, you know. But it wasn't meant to be an axe. It was meant to be a fighting tool for the soldiers over there, so that you could hit and break bone with it and stuff like that. And the guy said, you know, I said, have you tried to split wood with it? And he said, no. And I said, let's try splitting a piece of firewood with it. It bounced and bounced and bounced and just would not do anything. It'd make a cut about a 1/4 inch deep, and that was it, and it'd bounce. It was so thick, it just showed right out. But it was meant to be used to, you can cut through a tank body with it. Yeah. Meant to be a fighting tool, not a real tool. So. James, can't remember what my first knife was. I do. It was a Barlow. It looked very similar to that little Barlow right there. And my granddaddy gave it to me when I was 5. And it was a $5 bar, probably a $2 Barlow that'd come out of a hardware store somewhere. I think it was even a Western like this one is. And he went in there and he broke off about that much of the tip and blunted it off right there, and then filed it so it was round, so you couldn't stab yourself with it. You could cut yourself, you couldn't stab yourself with it. And that was my first pocket knife. I had it from the time I was 5 till I was 8, and then I lost it. And I cried, boy, when I lost that pocket knife. It was a cheap little pocket knife, but he was giving me one to learn with. And when I did lose it, oh man. William Moffett, welcome to the party. Patriot America. Okay, Blake had just been asked and answered. Reply to it. What folder are you carrying? I know you like buck 110s, and do I have a slip joint? What are you carrying? My everyday carry in my pocket is a Victorinox Fieldmaster. That's my everyday. The lock back I carry it when I'm carrying my lock back is my buck 110 right there. Depending on the job. Now, sometimes I've got a Granddaddy Barlow, which is not a lock back, it's a slip joint. But when you open one of these up, you figure out it's the same size as a Mora. So it's a sort of a folding Mora. So if I'm doing some bushcraft work that I wanted it, what I do, I have a tub, big old storage tub full of pocket knives, and I interchange them. You think like it's crazy, but you'll start feeling guilty by, you ain't carried that one in a while. Sure, and I got a few down here underneath the computer. I have to cut something, whatever, I'll reach down there and grab, and I'll change out this list down here from time to time and go with the old timer or go with this or whatever. So, but the Buck 110 is about my favorite lock back that I'm going to carry. Slip joint is usually either going to be like a Barlow or a 3-blade Stockman or the Swiss Army knife. The Swiss Army knife to me is a toolbox. I don't use the knife blade more as I do everything else on here. And in fact, if you made one of these up without the knife blade in, I'd still carry it. You know, because I could carry another pocket knife. But it's the joy of it. But that's my usual everyday carry down there. Mike Simmons, good evening, sir. Doing very well. Mike Simmons is one of the Fuel to Fire guys for this that I've done showed about 3 times tonight. The reason I'm carrying it on a baldric right now, one, I like it loose around this. But the other thing is this is brand new. This sheath is brand new. And so the sliding in and out is still a little bit snug. And that knife is razor, guys. I mean, it is a razor. And so I don't want to cut up the sheath by not being able to see when I'm trying to put it back in my belt or whatever. So putting it on that dangler, I got it where I can pull it out here and see it. Now, once this sheath wears in just a little bit where it goes in and out and not binding up, I'll go to carrying it on a belt, carrying a cross draw. You'll start seeing that. But for right now, I'm going to carry it that way so I can break the sheath in properly. I'll put it that way. That's what I'm doing. I've been rubbing. I've got leather treatment. Every other day I've been rubbing it in here and it's slowly darkening it. I got about 3 more coatings on that before I'm done with that. Making sure it's good and set to go. Sechmo, good evening. Okay. Carlos, thank you very much. Fallen Key, what do you think of K-Bar? Interested in one. K-Bars are good feel utility knives. Weakness, that upturned tip is easily bent or snapped off. Weakness, it's a rat tang. So batoning or something like that is a big no-no because it will snap it off where the blade comes back and where it hits the guard, it necks down to about like a 1/4 inch wide tang all the way to the back. And when you look at the butt end of it, you'll see a slot, and that hump, that's how thick it is all the way through. So you can't beat a baton on it in any way because it will flex it, snap it. Okay. But it holds an edge well. It does a good job. Turning it into a field knife, I have taken that curved tip and took a file and took it off where it's more of a point like this, more of a spear point on the end of it. Okay. It works better for woodscraft, fieldcraft. But I carried a K-Bar for a full year when I was a teenager and used it a lot. If you'll dull that false back edge, it makes a decent skinner then. So that you can push in underneath the skin. We'll just use this for a stand-in. The back edge right here is dull. Okay. You pierce in underneath the skin and then you ride down like that. And then you slide. And that will cause the fur to ride up over the edge. And you can open them up like a zipper for cleaning game, stuff like that. That hook on the tip of it prevents that unless you eliminate it out of a K-Bar. It digs into the meat rather than allowing you to skin easy. So if you're not planning on using it for game prep, it's a good field knife. But if you're looking as a true survival type knife, it is not the best choice. It's a utility knife. It's a good knife, but there are better designs. A full tang is a better choice for a field knife. William, what kind of magnesium rod is this? I got this from my good friend Randy Smith at stitchgear.com, and all it is just a ferro rod blank mounted into a piece of straight antler. I don't know who actually manufactured that, but Randy, I got one off of him at the Pathfinder Reeves up there to go in that, and that's what I've been carrying for quite a while. I like that pinky size whatever that exact diameter is, 5/8 or whatever it is. I like it that size. Aldo, yeah, the fur stays out of the way exactly. So when you push it underneath the skin, it just rolls up and over in parts, and you don't get so much fur on the meat that way. Whereas if you have to stick your fingers underneath and you're having to cut like that, you're always just wiping fur back onto the meat. And I prefer that pierce in, type back. And we did it with butcher knives. There's a reason they called it a butcher knife. I learned to do it with a butcher knife. That back edge back there was blunt and round, so you could bear down on the muscle and slide, and the skin would lift up and slice off. So yeah, Grey Wolf, that's it. What job? And you being a mechanic for 30 years, when somebody comes up and they say, I need a knife, what is the perfect knife? For what job? Um, there is no perfect knife. There is the perfect knife for this job. And then there's this knife that does many jobs well. And then there's that knife that is absolutely the wrong knife for this job, you know. And everything is a compromise. Everything has advantages. You got to know the strengths, realize the weaknesses, and then work with it. A bigger belt knife is always best complemented with a small knife to be able to do the tiny little things that big knife is just too big and awkward to do. At the same time, having a big knife for this is inadequate for what I need to do. You know, in fact, I plan on doing down the line eventually. I'm gonna do a video series called Pocket Knife Bushcraft, and going to show some tricks. But Felix Immelman is great at that, doing stuff with the Swiss Army knife and showing all kinds of things that can be done with a Swiss Army knife. Although, exactly, it's much better in cold weather because your hands are cold, bloody, and you're trying to do that and go between your fingers. If you can just stick and run and keep everything out of the way, I don't know how many times I've nicked. You're sitting there trying to do it and you're trying to cut and everything, you're trying to lift the hide up and go, and it's tiring. Falling key, what do you think of jungle boots? Wear them as much as possible. In fact, this week I had to retire my U.S. Air Force set, the green ones with the green soles that the U.S. Air Force was using for a while. I had got those as surplus from those ladies over at Kaufman's, and I've worn them probably for 5 years, and the sole was coming off of them and was giving up the ghost. And so I had um, went down to the local shoe shop and thought I would get them resold, and then they told me they can't get the soles that work. The only thing they could get was bright yellow and all this stuff. Well, that ain't gonna work. And when he quoted me the price of $80, I'll get another pair of boots. So it will be another. My summertime down here in my deep south, I usually wear some variation of a jungle boot because they're light, they're airy, and as you walk, they pump that heat out. And I live in a very hot, humid area. And if you don't have a jungle boot or something like that can breathe, the worst thing to get would be like waterproof, hunting boots. Your feet will be sitting in puddles of sweat. I mean, just literally you'll pour sweat out of a boot because it's 105 degrees with 90% humidity. Sweat is running down your back and your legs. It's got to have somewhere to go to dry. And jungle boots will, just like they did in Vietnam, you can get them wet and they'll dry quickly. They don't chafe as much. And those jets in the side of it, those little vents, let you pump air in and out. So it keeps your feet drier. So that's the reason I like mine. Correct, Aldo. It has a lot to do with their skill level. And when you get somebody that really knows what they're doing, Dan Lutz, my God, man. I watched him skin coons, and because he's been a professional trapper. And so he could skin and clean stuff with knives I wouldn't have picked. I mean, he took that big old W.C. Collins kukri, which is like that broad. It's a machete, is what it is. And he filleted a fish with it, just like zip, 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 zip. It didn't take him 30 seconds. You know, it looked like he was pre-cut and he just folding the skin out of the way, you know, but he had that kind of knife skill. His brain and hands were hardwired together, and he could do so much. If you've got the skill, it's just what blade you put in their hand. Exactly, Aldo. Dexterity is everything, and that's the thing you need to realize when you get really cold. When you start losing dexterity, stop trying to do detail work with a knife. You're going to end up hurting yourself. And don't, if you can't do that and touch all the fingers to the thumb, do not do anything where you can't see the blade. Don't reach up in a carcass trying to cut a windpipe or something, because you can't feel what you're cutting until suddenly you go, ow, and realize you've hurt yourself. So. Yeah, gray wolf. I've known people from Central and South America that could clean fish, do anything with a 4-foot machete. And I mean, seriously, I've watched them clean catfish, clean brim, you know, gut squirrels, gut rabbits with a machete, and just make it look effortless. There was I believe his name was Carlos when I was a boy, and he was from Cuba. And whenever Fidel had come up in Cuba, he'd left Cuba and come to America, and ended up in Alabama at the cotton mill down there in Geneva, Alabama. And he carried about a 3.5-foot razor sharp machete in the truck. And when he went down to the river fishing, that's what he used to clean fish with, was that machete. Because he said when he was a boy, that was the only cutting tool he could get, was the machete. They didn't give you knives, they had machetes. And so you want to do anything, use the machete. Carlos, do jungle boots protect against snake bites? Not really, too thin. Christopher Evans, Blackie, how difficult is it to replace a cylinder pin on an 1860? I have replacement parts in the mail. Completely strip the frame, lock it in the vise. Looking in the back where the hammer comes down, you're going to see the end of the base pin, cylinder pin. Above or below it, there's going to be another pin. What they do is they screw it in, and then they drill a pilot hole and they hammer in like a nail. And that's what locks the threads to keep it from unscrewing. You got to drill that out before you can unscrew the base pin. Lewis Ward, yeah, those Danner jungle boots are nice. Terry LaRue, good evening. Patriot America, Blackie, can you briefly discuss the importance of learning bushcraft skills in today's world environment? Yes. Bushcraft, woodcraft skills allow you to not just survive, but thrive in the outdoor environment. You know how to build a fire. You know how to build a shelter. You know how to cook food without any utensils, how to put on spits and things like that. You know how to make what you need from the environment to replace what you've lost. It is a basic, beyond survival skill. It's ability to thrive skill, where there isn't going to be X again, or there isn't going to be. And the most advanced societies are the easiest to cripple. History has shown that. The mighty Roman Empire disappeared. Alexander's empire disappeared. The Mongol Empire disappeared. The Muslim Empire disappeared. So big civilizations can indeed collapse and go back to Stone Age around them. Maybe not true Stone Age, but you get my point. Very primitive. And we live in a world right now that is absolutely dependent on electronic means. And if an EMP hit us from space, just like hit in 1850 whatever, it would cripple the world. And there wouldn't be a factory to get something out of. There wouldn't be any jobs. There wouldn't be any power. There wouldn't be any whatever. And it wouldn't be coming back for quite a while, maybe years. And so you would have to fend for yourself. And so just knowing how to boil water and purify water, how to filter water can be life-changing. How to dig a latrine, things like that. I live down here in the Gulf Coast, and I remember very clearly a couple of years ago, we'd had a Hurricane Michael come through, and it tore up everything. And then very shortly after, like the day after, they got the TV station going down there, and they had a question and answer with the FEMA representatives and stuff like that. And they were telling people to boil the water. Even though it's coming out of the tap, don't trust it, boil the water. And this guy called up and said, how do you boil water if the microwave don't work? He really had no idea how to build a fire. He'd never built a fire in his life. 30-year-old man, grown, works in IT, went through college, everything. And this guy never camped in his life, and he's never built a fire. And he's having to ask on live television, how do you boil water if you can't turn on a microwave? That's the only way he'd ever boil water. And he said, you got a barbecue grill? He said, yeah. Put it in a pot, put it on the barbecue grill. And he said, can a barbecue grill boil water? Swear to God, that was his response. That's why we need basic skills today in people like us to be a seed, if nothing else, when it all goes sideways. So at least somebody has an idea on how to do it. Hope that helps. Satchmo, any more on walking sticks? I know it's underrated for us silver wolves. I'm going to do a silver wolf a little later on building a walking stick from scratch. We're going to cut one. We're going to clean it up, and then we're going to make improvements to it to make it a better walking stick. So there will be a walking stick video coming this winter. Washburn Billy, can you talk about coyote wells for those of us that don't know? Sure. A coyote well is where you have found water, let's say in a swamp, bayou, pond, whatever, a ditch, whatever, and you've got a supply of water, but it's nasty. It's got crap in it, or it's got a lot of bugs in it, or whatever. And even trying to just dip it out and boil it, you're going to have stuff in it, okay? A coyote well is I move up the bank just a little bit. So let's say the water's edge is right here. I move up like this far away, and I dig straight down. If this is a pond, a stream, or whatever, through the ground there's a water table. It's cut a V, and so you see the water right here. But in reality, that V is where it's a wide water, and that's the high current. It's eroded and made that V so the water is visible. You're down at the water table. So if you move just a couple of feet, a foot or two away from the water's edge and dig straight down in the dirt, you'll hit water. So you dig straight down, you make a hole, pretty good size, big enough you can dip something out of. And then once you hit water table, keep going. Hit the mud, keep going. Go down about 6-7 inches below where the water starts. Then just scoop all the mud out, back off, and wait, and let the water ooze in. It's using the dirt to filter that nasty water and get all those particulate matter and stuff out of it. And it will flow in and fill up that hole, because water always flows downhill and water is always level. It don't care where it's at. So it will come up to that level and fill that hole up to even with that water table. Let it sit there just a few minutes, and all that stuff will, the silt will sink to the bottom, and you'll have relatively clean water sitting there to dip out of, and you can boil that. If you're 2 or 3 feet away, go 2 or 3 feet from the water source. This would be a big thing like a river or a lake, where this is obviously a big water table. If I dig down to that, that water is relatively safe, because all the things like Giardia and all those viruses and everything, they're in the water that's in the visible light. They do need a little bit of light to live. They don't live underground. So where the water seeps into the ground, they don't go in there. Maybe say an inch or two, a couple of inches from the water's edge. So if I'm 3 or 4 feet from the water's edge, and had to dig down 1.5 feet, 2 foot to hit the water table, that water is pretty much safe to drink. There should be very little of anything in it. Let it settle. It might take 30 minutes to an hour for it to go clear. But when it goes clear, very carefully dip that water out. And if I have to drink pure raw water, I have no means of filtering it and no means of boiling it. That's the water that I'm going to dip up and drink by hand, because that's relative clean water, because all the ground has filtered it, you see. And that water moving through the ground that I've tapped into that's in the water table, it ain't been to the surface. There's nothing alive in it, so I don't have to worry about it. So that's a coyote well. Okay, almost time to call it quits. Test bug, good evening. Yes, Susan, I hear you. Oh, Mom would be ticked about using the paring knife for that. Well, when I was a boy, all the old men would go out on the porch, and they would smoke their cigarettes, or they'd smoke their pipes, and every one of them pull out a pocket knife and they'd go to whittling on something. That was the pastime. And so boys and girls, I had a cousin, she would be out there with her uncle, and he'd show her how to carve little figurines and stuff, where she wanted to make it like a doll set out of wood, like a chess set. I carved a chess set when I was 6, where he would just say, okay, what you want to make? I want to make the little horsey thing. Okay, let's make the little horsey thing. And he'd take his pocket knife and he would draw out a shape on it. A lot of times he'd pick up little blocks of sugar pine and stuff like that from construction sites where they were cutting off 2x4s. And you'd sit there and carve it down and make a little horsey. Okay, that's a horsey. That's a Nite. You need 2 of them, 2 of this. And I made a whole chess set that way. And then the board was just drawn out and colored in black and left blank, made a board set. So my first chess set I made. I'd seen them, understand what it was, and I was the only one interested in it. So they played checkers, but he said they knew what it was. And he said, that funny one, the one with the little cross on top, that's the king. They didn't know the names of it, but they knew the horsey and the little round tower thingy, and then those round ones that are the pawns. That's what we made. We just carved it out of pieces of pecan tree and limbs and scrap wood and whatever, and then designate the 2 different sides. I painted one set black and the other set was plain, and that actually I spray painted it. So that we tell them apart. Well, guys, that's an hour and 50 minutes. We're going to call it quits for the night. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching. I greatly appreciate it. I will be back on next Thursday night. Like I said, tomorrow you've got the Canteen Cup cooking video coming out, where we're going to be we're going to be cooking eggs, bacon, and grits with a Canteen Cup. This Sunday, I will be posting a video about me and Grouch. I am going to see Grouch tomorrow, and me and him going to sit and visit and talk, and that'll be the video on Sunday. And then next week, you'll have a ground pounder with some military surplus coming out. There'll be the Canteen Cup cooking video next week. We're going to make cornbread in a canteen cup. We're going to bake bread. And I'm not sure what I'm doing next Sunday, but we'll get there. Well, till next time, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and for all the support. I greatly appreciate it. And like I forgot to mention it now, it's a good time as any. I am doing another run. This is going to be the end of the year run for my Blackbird haversacks, rucksacks, etc. All of those. Down in the description box, I list the new address you go link to. And that's the blackoracle69@hotmail.com. Go there, say, I want to get a haversack or whatever, and I will send you the list, and I'll send you the PayPal link. And you pick what you want. When you pay for it on PayPal, that's when I write your thing down, you're locked in. Okay. And this will be running probably till the 1st of November or something like that when I sell out. If I sell out, I'll tell you. So if you request something, I'll tell you I'm already sold out of that. Otherwise, everything's good to go right now. And the delivery date for this run should be the end of January because Christmas and the holidays are coming. So it's going to drag us out a little bit. But there will be one coming. Well, till next time, guys. Sweet dreams. God bless. Have a great day, guys.